What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic with Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield back with us from the studio in Boston. We had a great show for you guys. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, 5-star rating. Check us out on DraftKings YouTube channel live 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, as well as DraftKingsNetwork.com and Samsung TV Plus. We got a lot to get to on a Friday today. We have Anthony Anderson. He's going to stop by and join us here, actor, comedian, game show host, talk to us about some stuff he's got coming up with the upcoming NFL season. We've also got Aaron Schatz of the FTN who's going to come and help us preview the first bowl weekend of the NFL. But Dad, you and I were out here in Kansas City getting ready for opening night of the NFL. Thank you to everybody that tuned in to the 3-hour live show that we did last night, the pregame. Had a really good time with that. But the one thing we were waiting for was this sort of coronation. It felt like what we talked about, the Chiefs fans who hadn't gotten to be here for the banner unveiling, for the championship that they won before, because it was during COVID. This was Chiefs fans coming out in droves. It was all the red in the parking lot, a college atmosphere at an NFL game. And then the ball kicked off and things got a little bit more difficult from there. And all of a sudden we look up and a Lions team that we all picked with the points.
Well, yeah, we did.
But none of us were brave enough to pick outright. Ends up winning outright 21-20 last night in a way that I feel like confused more people than it shocked, maybe. It felt more of like confusion than shock at the end of the season.
And certainly not confusion on Detroit's part. Detroit feels they're going to have the team this year. As we did picks, I picked them to actually be in the NFC Championship game. And I know it's just week one, but this was what they expected. They came to KC thinking they were going to win, as every team does. It's not like, talking out of school and the team goes in and they don't think they're going to win. But they looked good and consistent doing it. 35 passes, 34 runs. I mean, you as a former offensive player, if you can achieve that every game, I mean, that's Valhalla for an offense to be that balanced. So from Detroit side, I thought it was an excellent game. But on the Kansas City side, we saw situations where, this is kind of an interesting game. Oh, here they go. KC's going to be KC now. They get that lead right before halftime. Yeah. Okay, they got the momentum. Okay, because there was a one driver right there at 14-7 in the second half, and I said, man, if they put one on the board here and go up 21-7, it's going to be interesting. Next thing you know, we'll get to pick six the other way, and we got a game. So it was the interesting part to me was Kansas City was in situations where we were like, well, this is Patrick Mahomes. Here they go. They're going to get it done. And they didn't. In part, give credit to Detroit's defense, but also no Travis Kelce became a monster moment in this game because who else was going to step up? Nobody really did. And unfortunately, it even went the other way to a number of drop passes.
Yeah, I think the two biggest takeaways I had from the game last night where we talked a lot about post-2011 CBA, the first 4 games of the season feel like an extended preseason. That felt sloppy for both sides at certain points. You mentioned the Detroit Lions. I thought Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, a lot of times during that game got away from the things that had made them work. I saw Dan Orlovsky tweet about it. He got a little bit too cute in this game. Right. There was a point midway through the fourth quarter where the Lions had 3 rushing attempts in the second half in a game that was close. Sometimes it's game script dependent. The touchdown drive that ended up putting them up, they had double the amount of rushes on that drive than they had in the half prior to that. So it took them a while to level set. But then on the other side, the drops with Kansas, all the issues they had, the execution on offense, you see Darius Toney drop. No one knew to run on the other at the mesh point there. We're going to talk about the 2 players that were both missing from this game in Chris Jones and Travis Kelce. Chris Jones-wise, I don't know what the sample size here says overall. This Chiefs defense only gave up 14 points. One of the touchdowns for the Lions was a pick 6 by Brian Branch. But I know this, Travis Kelce walks out of this game looking even more like one of the greatest tight ends of all time because without him, this offense really didn't feel like it had an identity it could latch onto.
So understand this, Kansas City and Pat Mahomes, when after they go up 20-14, as you mentioned, Detroit gets that drive, 75 yards, excellent drive. They go up 21-20. There's 7 minutes to go in the game, and Kansas City's down by a point. That is like, okay, if Aaron Rodgers are on the field or Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, they're like, okay, all the time in the world.
Too much time. It's the number one meme that we always default to. Too much time.
They couldn't do it at that point. And then to boot, with a couple of minutes to go, they get the ball right around midfield. Now they're basically at midfield with 2 minutes to go, and they still couldn't do it. That drive with 2 minutes to go, it was a Kadarius Toney drop, a deep completion callback for a holding penalty, a false start, a Sky Moore drop pass, and 4th and 25. That's not Kansas City.
No.
I mean, again, drop balls, penalties, 4th and 25. When you're 2 minutes to go, all you need is a field goal, and you have the ball basically at midfield. You had to be thinking. I mean, even Detroit Lion fans had, and there were plenty of them in the stadium.
Yes, there were.
And watching going,
yes, there were.
Okay, this is not going to be good for us with Mahomes. Mahomes completed the ball to 11 different receivers. You just spread the ball out. As I said, numerous drops. But that, to me, was the most interesting thing of the game, that they had multiple opportunities down by a point where you certainly expected Mahomes to move him down the field, and it didn't get done.
All right, GoJo and Golic, we are brought to you by Wrangler, made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GoJo. There's a few things in this that I want to hit. We've touched on some of the ideas here, but let's hear from the man himself, Dan Campbell, victorious head coach of a Lions team that has a lot of expectation, like we talked about yesterday, on their shoulders. But for Dan Campbell, this is exactly what he expected from his team.
Now, let me ask you this. Did we expect to win that game?
Yeah.
We did, and that's exactly what we did. Because we built that fucking way, and everything we talked about was how it went down. We had to be patient, man. Offense, we go all the way down and score. Defense, we need a takeaway. We come out at halftime, we get a huge takeaway. Told you guys we're built for this. We can overcome anything as long as you guys just hang with it. We got a ton to clean up when we get back. But until then, enjoy this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm proud of you guys. Break it down.
Hey, remember this feeling? That wasn't perfect. We stick together. We are built for this, boys. We are built for this. 2-0 next. Let's go. Win on 3. 1, 2, 3. Win!
I saw Dominique Foxworth, former NFL defensive back, tweet this, and Dad, you can speak to this, especially knowing the makeup of your team. Dominique tweeted, that flight home is going to be so fun and so drunk for that Lions team.
Without a doubt. I mean, again, a lot of people said it would be closer than they thought, but not a lot of people went out on a limb to pick Detroit. We didn't. And you're right. I mean, and the one line you heard from Dan Campbell, you're going to hear from every single coach, no matter what, win or lose this week. We got a lot of blank to clean up. Because as you mentioned, with the preseason the way it is, these first few games watch these teams in weeks 5, 6, 7, 10. They're going to be a lot different team. That's when you're going to really know what your team is. This Chiefs lost. This isn't what they're going to be. Obviously, they're not, because Travis Kelce is out. They'll get Chris Jones in camp at some point. So they're going to revert back a little bit more to what they were. But Detroit, I mean, they just lived up. I mean, to get Patrick Mahomes has played in five now, opening game, or 6 now opening games. He had never, going into this game, thrown an interception in an opening game. He had 20 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And on his resume now, it will show interception. When that ball could not have hit Kadarius Toney, when every New York Giant fan was going, see what we're talking about here? I mean, Patrick couldn't have placed the ball any better. Threw his hands off his shoulder pads. Brian Branch, the rookie from Alabama, had to be going, thank you very much.
Yeah, this is going to be the easiest interception of your career.
Incredible. Yeah, but it goes against Mahomes when it had nothing to do with Mahomes on that one. So that's his first interception ever in a season opener. So both teams a lot to clean up. I don't know how much I'll question Kansas City when you're missing your second and third best player. They're going to be back. But Kelce can't do it alone, even though last year, what did he have, 110 or 100 some receptions? And next closest was Juju Smith-Schuster with 78, but he's gone as well. So they are going to need to see what other receiver is going to step up. And so far, it's 0, none stepped up. They stepped up more, unfortunately, with drop passes than anything else. So that part of it, something is going to have to materialize there.
Just putting a bow on the Lions portion of things here, because I do want to give them credit before we look at the rest of the Kansas City miscues here and some of the hairy notions from the game. Dad, some of the good that I think came away from Detroit in this game, because it wasn't like they looked like world beaters either throughout the life of this game, but areas that we knew we were looking for a step forward from the Lions. I think defensively up front, Aiden Hutchinson, man, looked like a dude shot out of a cannon last night. Everyone spent their time talking about Jawan Taylor at right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, getting out of his stance early, being backed up off the ball here, which we went through this last year. We went through a whole offseason of it. They're timing up the snap. The referees are supposed to give them some leeway in timing up the snap. That's how this works, and that's why that wasn't called. If you want to beef with him being lined up too far off the ball, which is a penalty, your head's got to be breaking the hip of the center. That's a penalty if you're not doing that. They could have called that. They waited till late in the game to call a false start on that. Right. But I don't want to hear any of that. What I want to hear about is Aiden Hutchinson, who had a career-high 6 QB pressures in this game, according to ESPN stats and info, on plays where he recorded the first pressure, so it was the first guy through. Mahomes was 2 of 6 with 2 throwaways on those plays. Aiden Hutchinson last night was what you need on a defense. You need someone to be the point of the spear. You need the guy to be the first through the wall. And he looked like that dude in the game last night. So I thought that was big for them. The Brian Branch interception was easy. You're going against the lighter receiving corps. But him, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, those guys showed up in the frame a lot, either making big plays, tackling, or making big plays, pass broken up.
What you're saying about Aiden Hutchinson is so true. He's not going to get the sack every time, but he's going to make the quarterback move. And move so much that last night Mahomes, I believe, was the leading rusher in the city because he had to get out of there. But a lot of that was on Aiden, the spinning, that he is. I mean, he's double spins. He was a legitimate whirling dervish. And he was rushing both sides and interior. I mean, he was clearly moving all over the place. Really, really cool to see. So that was a big plus for them. And the other stat on the Detroit side, it's a negative, but it also shows just how good this guy has been over his career. Marvin Jones, the old, as we found out from our buddy Andrew Hawkins, the oldest receiver in the league at 33 years old. And they were deep in Kansas City territory. He had a catch, and he had the ball knocked out. Good play by Kansas City, but he fumbled the ball. He's been in the league 12 years. It was the first fumble in his career. He had gone 563 touches without a fumble. It was the longest active streak in the NFL. So that guy knew how to secure the ball. It was the first one of his career last night. And it hurt, too. It was deep in the territory for Kansas City. But an incredible stat for him on his consistency throughout his career. But you're right. I mean, game one, both teams have a ton to work on. But that was a big plus for that Detroit offense. And going back on the time, putting a bow on it, it was more Travis Kelce than Chris Jones. I thought the KC defense did not play bad at all, even though Detroit split their plays, like I said, which what you want to do. 35 pass, 34 run really gives you the chance to not let the defense just hightail it after you. When you split 50-50 like that, you sometimes you have to react a little more. And Spagnuolo, he loves to get after it, and blitz. So kudos to the offense, even though they did try and get cute for a little bit. I definitely agree with you there.
It was very interesting there. A couple other people that tried to get cute. Some of the decision making at certain points in this game. The Lions start off the game with a punt fake in their own territory, backed up, and then punt from plus territory later on in the game. There were some head scratchers like there. The Chiefs, my God, that 4th and 1 where they brought Blake Bell under center and then handed off to Jet.
What are you doing?
Did we learn nothing from the Philadelphia Eagles last season? You want to talk about overthinking things in game one. And listen, Bears fans, I get it. You don't like the guy. Matt Nagy's not calling plays.
No,
nobody else has ever been calling plays in the history of this. I understand you want to get your takes off too, but that is what it is. Dad, you're right, though. Overall, this boils down to what do we take from this game? The Lions, you look at them and say, all right, this looks like a team that has matured. They're able to win a close game that used to be the thing they always lost. Beginning with Dan Campbell, it was close but no cigar. Now on the road in a raucous environment, they were able to close the deal, albeit against a wounded opponent. And for the Chiefs on the other side, we've got certainly an answer about the importance of Travis Kelce to this offense and the questions that still remain. Sky Moore, the only receiver without a catch. You mentioned of those 11 players that made a catch for the Chiefs in this game. Kadarius Toney was a nightmare in this game. 1 receiving yard, -1 rushing yard, and 4 drops, one of which led to a pick 6. But Jesse, as we look, Chris Jones was sitting in the box, taking in that game and watching a defense that only gave up 4 points. So it was interesting, but he also had some very interesting company with him in that box.
Yeah, so he's watching the game from a suite, And Guy's Snacks, which is a Kansas City-based snack company, tweeted out the scene that we took in. So it's Chris Jones sitting with his agents, and they tweeted out, Chris Jones's agents look like they'd play henchmen if Lifetime made mafia movies. And it's so on point, it's so accurate, this photo. It looks like the Wish version of The Sopranos.
Yeah, it is absolutely 100% the case there. I don't know if people saw it, and they were like constantly on their phones. They looked like guys that were getting ready to order somebody to get baseball.
Yeah, like they're calling to make a deal, and like, you got to make me an offer that I can't refuse. You know what I mean?
And what's interesting is it really is sitting right on either side of them, like, we got you, man. We're gonna take care of you here.
Yeah, they look like the Altos.
Yeah, and it is weird. Listen. Chris Jones is human. He wants a lot of money. He wants a big deal. So I'm sure there are those that are wondering, what's his thought process as he's watching this game?
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you what his thought process is.
Yep.
I want my team to win, but I want my area of the field to not look good. I want people to say after the game, man, you were missed, but we still won the game. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. Well, they lost the game. And the guy that was missing more, that hurt him more, was missing was Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
Chris Jones.
It really was an incomplete data set as far as what this means for Chris Jones. Because you and I were both sitting in the press box watching the beginning, and that very first Lions touchdown, when they got down to the red zone, and every third down we were watching and wondering, all right, if Spags lets him just rush 4 here, how's that going to go? First touchdown, they rush 4 down near the goal line. Jared Goff's got time to tick, tick, tick through the formation, wait for his guy to come loose, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then dump that off late with a well-timed ball. And we all looked at each other. Everyone kind of went, all right, point in the jar for Chris Jones.
Absolutely, yeah.
After that, the rest of the game, though, we saw plenty of spots where, all right, the pressure did get home. Spags, who we know is one to want to use the blitz, was able to get home with that, was able to disrupt Jared Goff and get some hits on the quarterback. And so the bottom line is, if you give up 14 points in a football game, that is a defense, especially in this modern era, hey, that's a win for you.
That's a win, and especially, even though it is week 1, against an offense that last year was such a high-powered offense and put up a lot of points. So more of a win for Kansas City, even though they didn't get into the box score, that defense holding the 14 points.
Yeah, so again, Travis Kelce looks like a world beater. Chris Jones is missed, but we're still not quite sure how much. I don't think it sways leverage.
No, and he's going to get better at one point.
He will actually, absolutely. But coming up next, we got Anthony Anderson in a little bit there, and a look ahead at the college picks coming up this weekend. Next on Golic and GoJo.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. I'm Jesse Cofield. The guys, by the way, are still in Kansas City after their awesome live show that went down yesterday. So we welcomed the NFL back with open arms. We were so excited. What a game to start the season. But we still have a lot of action going down in week 2 college football. The top 5 teams will all be in action. So we got Georgia hosting Ball State. Michigan hosts UNLV. Bama and number 11 Texas in a much anticipated matchup. You're going to be calling that one, GoJo. Going to be cool. Florida State, after that big win over LSU, going to host Southern Miss, and number 5 Ohio State hosting Youngstown State. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys, when it comes to college football this weekend. So let's bring in GoJo and Golic for their Modelo College Football Weekend Preview, brought to you by Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
Thank you, Jesse. It's dead. I think a much more enticing slate of games coming up this weekend in week 2 than we got week 1. So the fighters are all going to be very happy because they've got better opponents this weekend. We have got really interesting, compelling anxiety matchups like Texas A&M and Miami, where I don't know if anyone's going to feel great on the other side of that, but someone's going to feel really bad. I do know that. And so I'm excited to watch the Anxiety Bowl play out there. Dad, we've got 3 really good games, though, that we're looking forward to this weekend. Let's start off with Texas at Alabama. I'm calling this game, so I can't make a pick. We're going to make picks in all these games against the spread. But this is the matchup of the weekend. College game day is going to be down there. And a rematch of a game last year where we thought we were going to see Texas really fully become back. Quinn Ewers, the quarterback who's going to be starting again for them this year, got hurt at the end of the first quarter in that game, and things got kind of hairy from there. Late game heroics from Bryce Young, who is no longer there. Dad, Alabama, a 7-point favorite in this game. What do you expect to see here? What do you want to see early in this season from this Texas team going on the road to, listen, one of the best environments in college football in Titletown?
And listen, last year, we talked about this last week. Last year, they have a 1-point loss at Texas, but you think, okay, they're hanging with the big boys here. Their season went on to not go well. So you thought, okay, that didn't go how we thought. But when are they reaching the next level? Is Texas back? Is the U back? We're always wondering, is somebody back? They have to win this game. It can't. We're past the point for them of trying to get better. Sark's got to pull this win off to say, okay, now we belong back up with the big boys again. So Quinn Ewers obviously getting hurt last year. They maybe could have won that game. Could have been a little different. So we'll see. We'll see this year. You can't tell much from the first games. Jalen Milroe, the kid from Alabama, threw the ball. I don't need to throw the ball 18 times against Middle Tennessee State. Easy win there. Ran the ball pretty well, but you really couldn't get a feel for what they were or how good they're going to be. So in picking this game and still not knowing the true evaluation of both teams, it's tough for me to go against Alabama. I know, and it's more than a
full touchdown.
That's the thing. Alabama to win for sure. The full touchdown, I don't know if I can give it. And I'm not basing it so much on the 1-point game last year. Just I'm not sure where these teams are.
Yeah.
So I think even though Texas is traveling to Tuscaloosa, I take Bama, but I'm going to take the points. I think it's going to be close again.
I think that's the one thing is you looked at Alabama, and they looked like a team that was just kind of still feeling out some things, right?
Yeah.
They were throwing jabs in that game, and they landed because it was them against Middle Tennessee.
Exactly.
Jalen Milroe throws for 3 touchdowns, runs for 2, becomes the first Alabama quarterback to do that, which is saying something given what the Alabama quarterback room has been like in recent years. But they're trying to figure out, hey, this is a roster that's got a ton of tight ends on it.
Right.
That we know. Tommy Rees, offensive coordinator that was with Notre Dame for a while, loves to make use of those big bodies. We've seen them spread things out so much in recent years. This Texas team, though, a lot more sure identity, especially on offense, who they were. It's going to be up to a guy like Quinn Ewers to see what that ceiling looks like, because for them, Xavier Worthy, who was one of the best wide receivers in college football last year, definitely in the Big 12. You've got an offensive line that returned all 5 starters for the first time in 30 years at Texas, that they've brought back that full slab. The running back room we know is going through some turnover right now, but in general, Sark on offense, finished product. Defensively, they've got plenty of dudes over there. Jalen Ford, their linebacker, is a stud. So I am do really think this is going to be a very close game because Alabama's got a ton of talent that they're working through trying to figure out. And because Texas has a ton of talent that is a little bit more sure of who it is, it just needs the quarterback to go and back it up.
They need the win, though, right? I mean, again, last year it's a 1-point loss. Your quarterback got hurt, and the thought was, okay, we're getting there. Now to be there, they're going to have and listen, it's no small task to beat Bama on the road.
Yes.
So that the expectation might still be a little too high, but I think it's going to be a pretty close game.
Yeah, I would definitely say I think this one's going to be close. I'd expect there to be a good bit of fireworks on this based on the coordinators on both sides. Very excited to watch that one. Dad, let's look to the next game here. This one near and dear to us. Notre Dame heading on the road for its first real test of the year. And outside of our interest, I think that's why it's interesting. Notre Dame up to the top 10 in the recent AP poll. 7.5-point favorites on the road against their first real test. You know, we had a Navy to start the season. We had Tennessee State last week at home for Notre Dame. This one going to be interesting. Scattered thunderstorms in the report here for a noon kickoff there. Shades of the 2016 American game between these two teams where Notre Dame threw the ball about 11 times. But then you've got, unstoppable force meets immovable object. You've got North Carolina State has won 16 of their last 17 at home and haven't lost a non-con home game since 2013. You can debate if Notre Dame is non-conference or not, ACC fans. Notre Dame has won 28 straight regular season ACC games this weekend. Dad, what do you want to see from Notre Dame in this matchup if more people are going to start buying into what Sam Hartman?
Well, two things. I mean, North Carolina State, they beat UConn and
a less than stellar performance.
Exactly right. They ran for over 200 yards, so they're going to test Notre Dame's run defense. Sure. I believe that's where they want to go. Brennan Armstrong, 17 and 26, but didn't throw for a ton of yards. So they were
about
really
150 yards.
Yeah, they were really pushing it down the field.
Led the team in rushing.
He did. They're going to want to live on the run. So they ran for over 200 yards. So that's going to test Notre Dame's run defense. And listen, as I said, I'm out in Ireland with my wife watching Notre Dame play Navy, and a short pass by Sam Hartman, and Notre Dame thinks we've invented the forward pass. We did. We're just
you keep saying that like we did.
Yeah, we're
so
happy
right?
of a passing quarterback, and Sam has looked great. But again, it's Navy and Tennessee State. So a North Carolina State. No, has Peyton Wilson been at North Carolina State for 20 years?
Yes. I mean, we have to forget super senior. We need to invent a different category.
But the linebacker, he's an incredible linebacker. He's got nicked some. I mean, I called games for him, I think, 10 years ago. So their linebacker core is usually a pretty tough one there. So this is going to be a test for a real test for the Notre Dame offense. How they're going to mix the run and the pass. How the passing game goes against a more realistic look of what defenses are going to be as the competition will continue to get better and better. This is what, a 7.5
point spread
on the road for Notre Dame. The fear of Notre Dame, I think they're a better team, but something we saw Tennessee State have a good first drive against Notre Dame. You're like, oh God, Notre Dame's playing down to the competition a little bit. They've been guilty of that. I'm not going to say that much here because North Carolina State's a good team, but Notre Dame should win this game. And I think they have something to prove to themselves to say, okay, everybody's saying the talent level is growing. We need to be better. So maybe it's, Notre Dame on my heart. I'm going to take Notre Dame and I'm going to give the points.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same. I think this is a game where you have to send a message. I do think a sloppy track, if it ends up being wet, that's advantage Notre Dame because of the bodies they've got up front, because of the depth of the running back room they've got there. And Sam Hartman showed slick track in Ireland. They were also able to get the ball moving through the air some too. Defensively for Notre Dame, it is going to be interesting. Mobile quarterbacks have traditionally given these units problems under Marcus Freeman and Al Golden. And so I'll wait to see how they address that. But NC State's got an identity. Robert and I, their offensive coordinator, was with Brennan for the good years, if people forget that, at Virginia. He went up last year and helped that Syracuse team get off to a great start with Garrett Schrader before Notre Dame helped kind of usher them to the softer part of their schedule. I'm with you on that one. Dad, let's finish up with the game of the weekend here. Nebraska on the road at Colorado. Colorado started off, I believe, a 7.5-point dog before last weekend. Now a 3-point favorite here. Who do you like?
Well, listen, I'm buying in somewhat to Colorado that they're going to get this win.
You believe?
I believe this week. Let's take it week by week. Nebraska, losing to Minnesota the way they did, coming to the end of that game, it wasn't the prettiest game in the world by either team, but they did only give up 13 points in that game, and some of them late. But just the high power offense. I don't think we gave Sean Lewis, the O coordinator, enough credit for what he did. But I'm going to go Colorado on this, and I'm going to give the points. Here we go.
I'll do the same thing. It feels wrong, but oh man, it doesn't feel right to buy into the hype. Coming up next, let's head to Hollywood and talk to Anthony Anderson next here on GoJo and Golic. All right, so excited to be joined by actor, comedian.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. I'm Jesse Cofield. The guys are still out in Kansas City after their awesome live show yesterday, so they're doing a bit of a road show. But Anthony Anderson joined the program earlier in the week, so check out the time that they had to sit down with him and discuss everything.
All right, so excited to be joined by actor, comedian, game show host. You guys have known him, obviously very familiar with Blackish. Anthony Anderson joining us now here on behalf of Smirnoff and the project he's involved with, which we want to hear all about with the NFL coming up. Going to make the opening coin toss even more exciting than it already is. But Anthony, just in general, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Mike Jr., I'm doing well.
There you go. That's the way to do it. We usually go junior and senior, or better looking and worse looking, you know, kind of that route. So I do stuff with my son. You do stuff with your son. It's interesting how the son always thinks he knows more than the father, isn't it?
It is, man. And that's what steers them wrong, because they know better than what we do.
I mean, how did that go for you, shoe on the other foot? I know you just shot a travel show with your mom this summer and did all that. So did you feel the role reverse there when all of a sudden you start balking at some of the stuff mom had to say?
Well, you know what? I taught my mother all that she knows. And during this travel show, you know what? Not to get into ageism, but I realized that my mother was an old woman. I didn't realize that until we took this 6-week vacation together. I was like, oh, mama, you are old. You are an old lady set in your ways.
Wow.
Man.
Did you really say that to her face?
I did, Senior. See, my mother and I, we have a special bond. Our bond is more like brother, sister, best friend. than mother or son. So we can sit down and have conversations and talk about anything and say anything to each other's face.
What was the most interesting thing that got said during this series then? You spent, 6 weeks with your mother abroad?
Yeah. Did you just call my mama abroad?
Yeah.
Because she is abroad from the mean streets of Chicago. But no, I think maybe the most egregious thing that I told her was that she was an old lady. And I had to tell her that while she was behind the wheel of this convertible Bentley that I got her while we were in Cannes. And she was literally driving like an old lady. I'm talking about 17 miles an hour.
Wow. I mean, maybe she just wanted to show off the whip. That seems what it might have been like. She might have been driving slow so that everybody could take this in.
Nah, she was just driving slow because she's an old lady.
Anthony, I'm wondering, because we all sit and watch at home. Now, you've either been a guest or a guest host on shows like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Gong Show, To Tell the Truth, $100,000 Pyramid, Celebrity Family Feud. We all sit at home, everybody does, watches a game show and says, we could do that. When you're there, sitting in the chair with the clock running or the pressure on, how much more difficult is that when we all think we can do it sitting at home?
It's a lot more difficult than what you think it is. At home, there's no pressure. At home, we know all the answers. At home, there's no buzzer. There's no live audience or whatnot. It's almost like game day. When you get there, you got 60,000 screaming fans and you have to execute. And sometimes you don't execute the way that you want to do. And that's how it is with these game shows. But it is a lot of fun. And for the most part, I can say that I've won more of these game shows by myself and with my family than I have lost.
Hey, the bottom line is your record. Like you said, in sports and in life, that's all counts the same, and especially in game shows. You mentioned game day. I'm curious because everyone knows you from your roles and your job here as an actor, but what's your relationship with sports been like since you were a kid?
It's been great, man. I grew up in Compton, Los Angeles is home. So the Raiders has always been my football team. The Dodgers have always been my baseball team. The Lakers was my team growing up. And I made that switch to the Clippers, and people always ask me why. I really don't have an answer, but I cheer for both teams. But a lot of my friends went over to the Clips, and I just moved over there to start rooting for my friends.
The one thing over time that Mike and I have seen is athletes would love to be entertainers and actors and entertainers would love to jump in and be athletes. So if you could go into that role, what would be the sport and position you would have liked to have starred at?
Oh, I'll tell you this, football. I grew up thinking I was going to play for the Dallas Cowboys because that was my dad's team. And I was going to be a running back. Yeah, that was mine. I thought I was going to play for America's team as a kid and be a running back.
When did that dream go by the wayside?
I'm only 5'10", but that doesn't mean anything. It's when the fat didn't turn into muscle. It's when the fat stayed fat and I stayed soft and realized, I can't get hit like this. Let me go into acting.
That's a problem I've also run into, but now more in my mid-30s than anything, which is really interesting. So it comes in waves. What about
it's hard to go through when you're 13. It's like, Mom, it's not going to get hard.
What about shoe on the other foot? Because we see a lot of athletes get acting roles, get to do either smaller parts. Some of them work their way into more, especially with guys owning their own production companies now. Has there been an athlete that you've seen on set that you've either worked with or watched that you actually thought could act pretty well?
There are a lot of them, man. And it's interesting that you bring that up right now. I'm working with Vernon Davis here with Smirnoff, on We Do Game Days. So that's who I've been working with for the last year since Super Bowl last year. We started this partnership together and with Smirnoff. So I tip my hat to Vernon as well.
I want to get into that because as a former captain of a couple of teams, I used to call tails all the time, and that's going to be really good for people if they do. But one kind of serious one, you're such a hit with the show Blackish. When you get known for something like that, do you as an actor, because nothing lasts forever, do you like to embrace that narrative of what people think, or are you looking to change it and say, you know what, I do other things as well?
I embrace that narrative, but I also, like to switch it up. and show everybody that I have range like a rover. That's what I do. Just to show them the other side of it. From being comical to being dramatic, to hosting game shows and travel shows and food shows in the food space. Also hosting a golf show, just to let everybody know that it's all about diversifying my portfolio, so to speak, in terms of everything that I do. And all the things that you've seen me do are things that I love and things that are a part of my life. So that there's nothing like, living and working with your passion.
Is there anything you haven't gotten to do yet that you still want to?
Yeah, play football for the Dallas Cowboys. They could use me right now, soft or not.
Well, listen, at this point, all you can really do is maybe be the celebrity guest captain and call a coin flip. So why don't you tell us some of the things you got going on with Smirnoff right now?
Well, like I say, we're starting off with Smirnoff from the kickoff of the first season to the Super Bowl. And we do game days. That's what it's about. And we're doing something special because at the coin toss at the beginning of the season, if it lands on tails, fans out there could log in and they could win Smirnoff drinks for the entire NFL season. There's nothing like football and Smirnoff cocktails.
You got a 50-50 shot right out of the gate to register. Yeah, and if it comes up tails, man, you're in. That's a very cool thing.
Yeah, a senior. Now tell me this. Why did you always call tails during the coin toss?
I wish I knew, because when I gamble, and I gamble a lot, every now and then I'll go by the roulette table and I'll always I'll just play. I won't play numbers. I'll just put it on red. And I don't know why I'll put it on red, but I've just, for some reason, I've always called tails. I always saw tails never fails, blah, blah. I wish I had a better story and a better reason, but I don't. And I have no idea what my record was in calling that. But like you say with game shows, I'm going to say I hit tails way more than I hit heads.
There you go. But roulette is your table, right? Always bet on black. Leave that red alone, senior.
Okay.
Always bet on black.
I will give that a shot. And if I lose, I will send you the bill.
There we go. You know what?
I got you, baby, and I'll flip a coin for you.
There we go. Tails never fails. Tails got the greatest marketing on the planet. Whoever is doing the marketing for Brussels sprouts apparently also did the marketing for Tails way back in the day. That's what everyone needs to root for. Anthony, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate this and all the work, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon down the line.
I hope so, guys. Thank you. Thank you for finally having me on your show. I've been a fan for a long time, so thanks for having me.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic here on DraftKings Network. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Dad, we had some big news yesterday as we were sitting around waiting for the game to get started. We had talked about the deal that went down for Nick Bosa and said, surely Joe Burrow can't be far behind. And apparently Joe can send us our commission on that. We spoke into existence for him. Joe Burrow gets his deal now where he becomes the next record-signing quarterback in the NFL, agrees to an extension worth $275 million, averaging $55 million a year, and $219 million guaranteed, now making him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history.
You know, this is one of those off seasons where we saw some big money go out to quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and long ago when we were wondering, is Lamar Jackson going to be that guy that draws the line in the sand that says, I want my fully guaranteed like Deshaun Watson. So through all of these deals, quarterbacks win like they usually do, but the owners also won, right? And realized that the Deshaun Watson deal, they wanted an outlier. Players wanted it as a precedent. It clearly is an outlier, right? That nobody, these guys, this trio or this quad of young quarterbacks getting huge money. Not one of them got fully guaranteed. They got a lot of money.
And listen, very different situations. We know in all of this, these guys weren't up with true free agency the way Deshaun was there. Even Lamar Jackson was dealing with a version of the tag that was going to subvert the market.
But I still don't see it coming, right?
Well, I don't see quarterbacks pushing it to that point because why, when this much guaranteed, Deshaun Watson got $230 million guaranteed. Joe Burrow's is $11 million.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So there's really no need to push for that fully guaranteed deal when the way it's going, at some point, fully guaranteed money is going to be over the $230 million threshold.
Exactly.
Where the contract is, we're going to hit $300 million contracts for quarterbacks coming down the road. There's no doubt about it. It's the way it's going. It's the way it's going in every position, as we'll talk about, you know, with Nick Bosa as well and who's coming up. But it was interesting to me. The guaranteed money was $219 million and 10,000.
Yeah, and so I was very curious about this. And listen, Joe Burrow, overwhelmingly deserving, right? Like a guy who has gone out and done, Dad, what is a lot harder than I think. We talked about the draft yesterday.
Oh, my God.
Coming in and being a quarterback that almost single-handedly lifts your franchise from obscurity is exactly what Joe Burrow did. He came in here behind an offensive line that allowed him to get hit and sacked over 70 times in a season when he took them to the Super Bowl. With great wide receivers, as we know, with Lou Anarumo, who's really become a name that people know as the defensive coordinator, all these other things, but he did so much on his own. I understand at times why Bengals fans bristle when we put Patrick Mahomes in his own tier, because they feel like, hey, we've got one of these guys who did what we expect a quarterback to do, go out here and vastly improve everybody here. I still don't think he's on Mahomes' tier, but he's the one right below it. He's that group of superstar players that have absolutely changed the course of this franchise's history.
And oh, by the way, Cincinnati has Casey's number a little bit as of late.
Until the postseason last year.
Well, that's very true. But you want to talk about the draft working perfectly in this case. 2019, Cincinnati had 2 wins. So they draft Burrow in 20. They have 4 wins, and he gets his knee blown out, okay? So, but a little improvement. Then 10 wins and 12 wins, plus a Super Bowl trip, of which they lost that game. But, and it's not just Burrow, you know, the T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. They've drafted and acquired talent well, which that in and of itself makes your eyebrow raise because it's Cincinnati. And they didn't have a great track history of that. But it's worked to perfection in the short time. They were the worst team in the league back in 2019.
Yeah, we talked about with yesterday, Hawk, Mike Brown, and the perception of that organization. Joe Burrow has single-handedly changed that. He's forced them to spend money in a way that usually was not the case for them. But you mentioned that extra $10,000, $219.01 million guaranteed. I want to know what the extra $10,000 is for. We got some interesting answers on Twitter, at GoJo and Golic on Twitter. You can hit us up at Mike Golic Jr. on Twitter as well. Carmen Batali, our friend over at Fox, said an actual tiger could be up there. Travis Fulton said groceries. I saw somebody, Caboose85 said just for a little treat.
A $10,000 treat.
$10,000 treat. Someone said Botox cigar allowance, maybe even a Grater's ice cream allowance there in Cincinnati.
That would be nice.
$10,000 wouldn't be nearly enough if that was the case.
No, but seriously, what is that? We saw that in like Herbert's contract. Didn't it have an odd
number tagged at the end of it as well for Justin Herbert? You wonder.
Yeah, so Justin Herbert's contract was 200, and that's what people were wondering at first is because it's always jockeying by agents to make sure, hey, what do we have here? Now, Joe Burrow was going to have it any which way here. You talked about the quarterbacks leading up to this. Jalen Hurts had signed first for $255 million. Then you had Lamar Jackson for $260 million. Then you had Justin Herbert for $262 million overall. Joe jumps that by a pretty good amount, $13 million. But the guarantee for Herbert was $218,378,376. And there have been stories done in the past how sometimes they'll just throw in numbers like this for fun inside jokes, for things that they want to throw in there for fun. I'll be curious if and when we find out what the story is on the extra $10,000 for Joe.
Maybe it was to pay for all the 9-cent SAG girl shots that are going to be going on in Cincinnati.
No, it's for his tiny sunglasses collection.
Oh, yeah. He does have a really, he's got, remember, like the Sprocket sketch on SNL? He's got a lot of Sprocket sunglasses.
Wow, good call, Jesse. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
it's definitely for that.
Definitely for that. Jesse, we had one other player that was very excited about Joe Burrow's influx of cash for tiny sunglasses as well, it seemed.
Yeah, Nick Bosa got paid, baby. 49ers defensive end agreed to a historic 5-year deal. It's worth up to $170 million. He's now the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history with $34 million per season. And Micah Parsons probably did like a backflip when he saw that number, right? Quick to jump in and offer his congratulations on that one. So, to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, he said, super happy for Nick Bosa, man. He really showed why he was the best player in the league last year. Gives you something to chase, not in terms of his contract, kind of, but in terms of how great he was. If you study his mindset, how patient he was. So Parsons' current deal ends after 2024. I'm sure he was thrilled to see that number. He's saying, not in terms of the contract, but I mean, kind of, right? He's probably like, okay, now I can cash in when my contract's up.
Oh, that's exactly what he meant, Jesse.
Hell yeah.
No doubt. And it would be great just to hear. I think there was one baseball player years ago, because you just want to hear it. A baseball player signing for big bucks. And he actually said, it was about the money. We know it's about the money. Don't sit there and try and say, oh, I want to emulate that style or whatever. You want that money. And quite honestly, Micah Parsons is probably going to get that money. Now, he can, as Jesse mentioned, his deal's up in 24, but he can do an extension after this year, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that he is going to be the next highest paid defensive player, right? I mean, I don't see how he wouldn't be at the trajectory he's at right now, what he's done in his first years. If he puts another monster year together, I picked him to be the defensive player of the year this year. He's going to get more.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of had Dallas already give up the goose publicly a little bit, talking about the Zach Martin contracts, all these different things. What they were dealing with as far as Micah Parsons and having to prepare financially for him coming up.
Yeah. I'm not sure where they're going to go. I mean, but Jerry Jones is going to spend a lot of money. There's no doubt about
Jerry
that.
Jones is going to spend a ton of money on this dude. Micah Parsons this year also a guy that is, we expect more full-time at edge. We've heard a lot about that this offseason.
I'm going to find out this week.
Which also kind of factors in. Yeah, I can say, Dad, you're getting ready to see him in the Giants and Cowboys game on Sunday night. But that's also another part of this is we've seen in the past people sometimes parse differently about, well, are you this position? You know, I think of Jimmy Graham back in the day, the arbitration he went through with the tight end wide receiver dispute there. And now we know the price tag for off-ball linebacker and price tag for pass rusher very different. I don't think there's any disputing here just because for Micah Parsons and what he does, this is the Nick Bosa theory. You are undisputably so great at what you do. The Dallas Cowboys defense is not anywhere near the heights that we're talking about now. Dan Quinn's a great coordinator. Trevon Diggs is great on the back end. Everyone deserves that money. But this doesn't work unless you've got that guy constantly making offensive line go, all right, where is he? Where's 11? How do we get to him?
Well, we're there, aren't we? Don't you think we're game planning? We're game planning.
We've been game planning.
And I think their defense has a chance to be a top 5 defense this year with the talent they have. Bringing in Stephon Gilmore as well, I think, is going to help them. And what Dan Quinn does with that defense, I think it's going to be one of the top defenses. Early test with the Giants, we'll find out.
Yes, we will get a good look at that. They will get up close and personal with him. We'll get up close and personal. We're going to head to week 1 in the NFL next here on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, brought to you by Wrangler, made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GOJO15. That's GOJO 15. So we are off and running with the NFL season. Got a full slate on Sunday. Junior and senior look like they're fist fighting each other right now. I will toss it to them. They'll give us a preview on what's coming up this week. Geez, are you guys okay? What's happening?
I know where every surgery you've had is.
He hit me right in the bad shoulder. Okay, but he targeted me.
I would separate you two if I was there, but I can't.
I learned every dirty thing I knew about football from my father. Like, you guys have no idea what kind of things he was incentivizing.
Was it dirty or
telling me to like pull and twist ankles? Yeah,
I don't recall ever saying that. I remember saying step on an ankle.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I didn't do that, did I?
I think at some point you did. Man.
He's got memory loss.
He was basically putting out bounties on our youth league games here. The Philadelphia Eagles locker room changed you, dog.
Did it work or not? Well, no, your team never won.
I was going to say, I played on some of the worst Pop Warner teams I'm playing. We won one game in like 3 years. Anyone who ever tells you, by the way, losing builds character, no, it absolutely does not. Losing makes it really unfun to drink juice boxes and eat snacks after.
Their Little League team 1 year, Jesse, had lost all their games, and they had a bye week. They had an actual week off. And the coaches
we had a bye week in Little League football. Recoup for the rest of the year, go back to some good on good this week.
The coach, instead of giving them the weekend off, said, we're so bad, we need to scrimmage somebody. We went, I think to Massachusetts or something.
We commuted.
To play another team, and this team beat Mike's team worse than any team beat him in the regular season.
Was that
on their bye week
where they were kicking it off?
Into his backyard.
It was landing on somebody's roof. They had a legit kickoff guy on Pop Warner football. In what world? Adam Vinatieri played for that youth team.
Through the end zone, we had to actually hop the fence to go get the football out of the backyard. We got our. They got
wow, all right. You're just going to scum us out like that.
Listen, I backed away from that immediately.
Attitude reflects leadership.
Holy smoke.
We got our ass kicked because you guys didn't have us prepared.
Man, you got your ass kicked because you guys stunk.
Yeah, we were bad. The Farmington Valley Mudhogs were not a great day. Also, I just realized that we were close to being the same name as the Southeastern Louisiana Mud Dogs.
Oh, yeah, very close.
From the Water Bowl. It comes full circle. The whole point of this is I learned to target the injuries and weaknesses of my opponents. From you, I know you've got a pin in that shoulder, so I punched the hell out of it because you tried to assault me.
You're targeting the injuries, maybe not doing something illegal to it, as wink, wink, as anybody knows, but, just letting them know where they're injured. Jesse, worst defeat you ever had in your life? You remember it?
Do I remember what?
The worst loss that you ever had in your sporting career.
So, no, probably my freshman year of college, because in high school, I went to a very famous women's lacrosse high school. We lost like one game my entire high school career.
Oh, so you were like the Independence High School football of women's high school lacrosse.
Yes, like my coach is like notoriously famous. It's crazy. So I got to college and we immediately started losing a lot. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But I like to forget that stuff.
You people stink. What are you doing?
Yeah, it was bad.
Jesse was looking around at her teammates the way Patrick Mahomes was looking around at the wide receiver room last night after that Chiefs game here.
Oh,
going,
my God.
I just need somebody to
catch
help
the ball
me right now. By the way, all those people that acted like I was crazy last week or this week when I said if Patrick Mahomes somehow manages to win this game without having the other two best players on the team out there, I don't look as crazy now, do I? That looked pretty hard out there when none of your receivers want to receive the blessings that you're trying to throw their way.
4 drops in here, plus Kadarius Toney not only dropped, but right through his hands off a shoulder pad, led to a 50-yard interception return for a touchdown by the rookie Brian Branch for Detroit. It looked bad out there. You needed somebody to step up without Travis Kelce being there, and nobody really did. 11 different receivers caught the ball, but you never really felt comfortable to the point where this is Patrick Mahomes. With 7 minutes to go, they were down 1, couldn't do anything then. They get the ball back with 2 minutes to go around midfield. All they need is a field goal, and they have one of the worst series they could ever have. A drop ball, a long completion called back for holding, a false start. Next thing you know, it's 4th and 25.
The comedy in that moment. Yeah. I know we joke about the NFL script writers. They've got that great ad right now about it. Whoever scripted finally calling Jawan Taylor for a false start on the 4th and 20 with the game on the line. That is a master NFL writing here. Give that person a raise. Pay all the writers, by the way. We support the striking writers in Hollywood. But give that person specifically a raise for that moment.
And what goes on behind the scenes, and you know this because you were a victim of it when you were at Notre Dame and played Stanford.
My darkest
is
time.
The coaches will be in the ear of the officials all the time saying, he's lined up too deep. He's moving too quick. Watch him, watch him, watch him, watch him until you finally get the call at the end of the game.
And he did kind of wiggle a little extra before. I understand people were looking at that too. They were talking. The Lions coaches were absolutely talking to them about that the entire game, I'm sure. But the referees also decided, hey, this is what goes for this game, by and large. And so everyone crying in my comments about why are the offensive line cheating? Mind your business. It's not cheating when they don't call it there.
That's exactly
That was the game we had last night there. By the way, that decision to go for it on 4th and 25 for Andy Reid, backed up in his own territory. 2 minutes left and 3 timeouts there. That seemed a little surprising to me. I'm all for being aggressive on 4th down. 4th and 20, when you got that kind of action still in your hip pocket there, that seemed a bit like Andy Reid knew, man, we just don't have the dogs to hunt tonight on offense.
Well, a lot of times it's you go by flow of the game, right? Normally you think Patrick Mahomes, give him another shot, and don't take the chance on 4th and 25. But you're right, it goes to looking at the game and what's happening and saying, I don't have a whole lot of confidence going on here, so let's try and get it one play. When are we going to get the ball back?
I thought they would have had more confidence in their defense based on what had gone last night. It's so weird because I am the most aggressive. Like, I always feel bad in the booth. I'm like playing with everyone else's money, saying go for it on every 4th down. But that one, I was even like, man, your defense had played well enough to where maybe you pin them back there and let those guys go to work. Maybe you can get the ball back there. But, Dad, let's move on from last night. We have the full weekend now, the full slate of NFL games coming up this weekend that are going to be very interesting here. I think there's a handful, Dad, that as I look at this weekend, right, and we've got some really good ones, division matchups like Green Bay and Chicago, where we're going to get a look at Jordan Love playing for the first time. The 49ers going on the road to the Steelers that all of a sudden has a different tenor now that Nick Bosa is back in the building for that team. But I look at a game like the Bengals-Browns, and I am fascinated, not just because Joe Burrow got paid all of that money, but because you're going and trying to answer the question of, who are the Browns going to be this year with a Super Bowl roster around their quarterback in Deshaun Watson, but with what we saw last year from that player and what we saw in the preseason, which is still a guy that looks like he's trying to figure out if he can be the quarterback he used to be?
I mean, this, in all honesty, I think is a question for both quarterbacks. I mean, everybody seems like, oh yeah, Brock Purdy's the guy. And he very well may be, and he showed it last year, but he's got to come back. You're talking about Cleveland and Cincinnati. No, I'm with you about Deshaun Watson. the question mark is there. He got all that money, which turned out, again, to be an outlier, not a precedent. Where is he? He says he wants to get back to even better than he was in Houston. It's great. You can say whatever you want, sure, but you got to show it. But I'm with you. They built the Super Bowl a roster around him, especially defensively, though. A couple of years ago, they underachieved on that defensive side of the ball. They have the ability there, but I love the weapons on offense. I still am not sure why Dallas got rid of Amari Cooper. He and CeeDee Lamb together. Now, you would have to pay them both. Sure. CeeDee Lamb had a great year last year, but those two together, not like you can't have two great receivers on a team, i.e. Cincinnati on that one. But this is all about Deshaun Watson, without question, how he is back. And do you give him the benefit of it's week 1 and we're not sure? I don't know if you do, because he's had a lot of time to progress or get back in and knock the rust off. He got in at the end of last season and didn't look good. He's one, I think you got to start the season out strong, and he's got to start hitting right away and show, yeah, I'm back on the positive side.
Yeah, it's got to start to pay immediate dividends, or else that Browns front office that we talked about going to start to panic a little.
And nothing they can do about it either, right?
No.
Nothing. Deshaun Watson isn't going anywhere.
No.
So, I mean, you're living and dying literally with this one.
And I think we've already seen some give from Kevin Stefanski in the preseason on changing the offense to fit more of Deshaun. That was always a conversation when you had Baker Mayfield there under center, was what he did versus what Kevin Stefanski and that offense wanted to do. Timing and the precision on the routes here, a lot of play action under center stuff. During the preseason, we saw more 4 and 5 wide receiver sets from them. Deshaun Watson back in the shotgun, empty looks, the stuff that made him comfortable when he was in Houston that honestly goes against what you had last year. I mean, this is a team that probably could have claim to saying we've got the best running back in the NFL in Nick Chubb. Yeah. They built that offensive line to be the engine that makes it go with him. And now you're willingly at times going to take the ball out of what is your best player in Nick Chubb, probably him and Myles Garrett on that team, you could argue as the current best players on those roster. You're going to willingly take touches away from him to try and feed to your quarterback, because that's what's got to go for your team.
And let's see how long that lasts. Obviously, it's a production, from a production standpoint, is it working? If not, you go back to what they do best, and that's run the ball. Yeah. This has been a running team behind one of the better offensive lines in the league that, you're right, is now trying to switch up a little bit and make it more of a passing team. We'll see. You know, success will breed more success in that, or they just turn around and hand the ball off to Nick.
I'm fascinated also in this game. The matchup I'm most excited to watch is what this Bengals offensive line starts to look like now. This is a group that went out and spent on Orlando Brown Jr. Jonah Williams has moved over to the right side there. Myles Garrett against that offensive line here to see, because, man, if Cincinnati, even last year, they had gone and remade so much of this line, but it took a while for that to start to gel. You've got a lot of these guys that are back here in the middle. We talk about Ted Karras, Cordell Volson, Alex Kappa. If that group takes a big step forward this year, Dad, all of a sudden we unlock something crazy in this Bengals offense, considering what they've been able to do with Joe Burrow basically living, getting hit.
I was going to say their track record is not good there, right? No. Going back to the Super Bowl year, being sacked 70 times, and what was it last year? I think he was sacked 41 as a team. They were sacked 44 times. The line has not been great from a pass protection standpoint. So much seeing if they can improve. It's different than like the Colts. The Colts' whole line had been great and had a really bad year last year to try and get back to where they were. Cincinnati had never been a great line. They had always been getting their quarterback hit, and that's something that has to change just for the survival of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and I think Orlando Brown Jr. is a very good player, and culture-wise, he seems to fit in really well up there. He's been excited about there. He's a great guy to have in that room, and he comes from the pedigree of what they were able to do in Kansas City and hopefully bring that over. They're hoping he's the capstone to that team. Dad, at that game, by the way, the Bengals 2.5-point road favorites in that game. I like the Bengals and the points there too.
I do too.
I can't trust the Browns. I'm going to have to see it at this point from them if they're able to, on offense, get a quarterback to produce in a way that can support the rest of that roster. Because the Bengals roster defensively, I think, is there while they've had to sub some guys in the back end. Lou Anarumo gets the benefit of the doubt from me that he's going to be able to get the best out of those guys.
I'm going with what I know. And I know what Cincinnati is, and I don't know what Cleveland is because I don't know where Deshaun Watson is. So same way, going with Cincinnati given the points.
Yeah, one of the interesting ones to me is Dolphins at Chargers, because remember last year Sunday night game when the Dolphins came out to Los Angeles, played the Chargers, and Brandon Staley and company gave everyone else the blueprint for how to stop this Miami offense. The rest of the season we saw Brandon Staley, who is a disciple of Vic Fangio, he's one of the guys that falls under that tree of dudes. They went out there and were able to stop it. How do you see it going this time around? The Chargers 3-point favorites at home in this game here, with now Kellen Moore making his debut calling offense on one side for the Chargers, and the aforementioned Vic Fangio showing up for his first rattle out of the box with the Miami defense.
So what's interesting is we thought last night, we all took the over in last night's game, right? And we certainly weren't there. It was 53.5 and there was 41.
Very sad.
I would have thought the same thing in this game, right? With the offense that Miami has, though, in calling that game, the offense did not look good last year for Miami, and what the Chargers have as well. So I would look at the over, which makes me now nervous because of what I saw last night and what they're going to come out with. I expect, and I expected a little bit last year, the Chargers to be a little more of a surprise, and I think now not so much a surprise. I think they should be one of the better teams. And do they elevate themselves into the conversation of the deep AFC that we've been talking about? Well, I think Miami's there, especially with that roster. And the linchpin there is Tua being healthy. And it's week 1, so right now I think it's just fine. So their big play capability, though the Chargers obviously had that as well. Who's going to have more big plays in this? Who's going to have more chunk 20-yard-plus plays in this game?
And I don't feel like there's going to be that many to come by just because both defenses and the way they're naturally structured, right? Last year, Miami played that style of defense, and you had that Brian Flores influence of, we're going to play single high, we're going to fire bodies at you in the backfield, we're going to try and make your life a living hell. Both these teams want to sit back with 2 high safeties. Both teams want to have that 4-man front up there, and they want to keep everything in front of them, and they want to funnel all that in there. And that's what they did so well last year, did the Chargers against that Dolphins offense. I feel like that's what you're going to see from Vic Fangio. He has authored the NFL's defense that is in vogue right now, kind of the same way we talk about those Shanahan-McVay guys. We're seeing Vic's defense show up in a world where people don't want to give up the big plays. So I think it's going to be a Chargers team that's a little more used to taking what's there underneath. And can Mike McDaniel and company now, in this next iteration of the Dolphins offense, find ways to make Tua comfortable against the defense that made him the most uncomfortable last year?
It will be interesting, them looking at that tape from last year, because even keeping everything underneath, I still like how Miami should be able to get yards after the catch, with a Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle, but Hill for sure. And you have to give the Chargers credit for what they did. I do think because it's week 1, you may see more big plays in this game, but I'm anxious to see where the Chargers go, because I expect them to really, as I said, vault into. And do we base anything off of week 1 of what we saw out of Kansas City, that maybe the Chargers will kind of be a team that can challenge them a little bit in the division? I don't, tough to say after week 1, but can only go off of what you saw.
Especially if that Chargers offensive line that's getting healthy again, right? They're going to get Rashawn Slater back at left tackle, Corey Linsley, Zion, that interior of that group's been good. They're another one. If that O-line bumps up, they can make it happen. You talk about the big plays and what this Chargers offense did to the Dolphins down the home stretch of the season. In the last 4 weeks of the regular season, Tyreek Hill, who had been one of the best yards after catch receivers last year, always catching in a ton of space, averaged just 1.3 yards after the catch in the last 4 weeks of the regular season. According to Inside Edge, 4th worst of qualified wide receivers. The Chargers allowed just 2.5 yards after the catch per reception to wideouts in the last 4 weeks of the regular season. That was the best in the NFL. So those guys knew how to limit those yards after catch for a Dolphins offense that's got probably the most speed in the NFL.
Tua in that game, 10 of 28, 145 yards, average 5.2. A reception in that game. You're right, and I do remember doing the game. It was all short stuff, and kudos to the Chargers defense for making the tackles, because that's what the thought is: give up the underneath, but then you have to make the tackle. And I thought Miami receivers, Tyreek Hill had 4 catch, did have 4 for 81 in that game, averaged 20 a reception. You expect that out of him, but they kept everybody else in check pretty well.
Yeah, they did. So that can be a fascinating game there. Chargers -3 in that game. I think it's going to be a little bit more close to the vest than some of the big plays than you do there. I could see the Dolphins keeping it within a field goal.
You're going with the Chargers, though?
I think the Chargers win that game, but I think the Dolphins can keep it within a field goal.
I'm going with the Dolphins to win on the road.
All right, there we go. Dad, let's finish with, and I know you can't pick this because you're calling it here, but the Sunday night game is going to be the one everyone's got circled. Dallas on the road taking on the New York Giants. Giants playoff team last year, won a bunch of close games, signed Daniel Jones to a good deal, but still, both sides understanding there's something to prove for everybody involved here. What stood out to you in the lead up and the preparation for this game?
Again, I think we've talked so much about the undervaluing of the running back. I think we're going to see a lot of the running game here. We have Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones got paid. Daniel Jones was great running the ball as well. But you have Saquon Barkley back in the fold after the whole, deal with the franchise tag of him running the ball against this Dallas defense, and Mike McCarthy now calling plays. Dak Prescott throwing a ton of interceptions last year. Are they going to be more conservative? Are they going to live off the run, with the Tony Pollard doing that? So I think we may see something that was more around when I was playing in that division, hard running teams. We may see that in this game as well.
I'm going to be fascinated by how this goes because everyone's brought that up as a talking point is Mike McCarthy, more balanced play calling, more with the defense in mind. In 2022, again, according to Inside Edge, the Dallas Cowboys running back averaged 27.2 carries per in the 2022 season. That was the most in the NFL. Like, they ran the rock plenty last year, but going to be very interesting. I want to give a shout out, by the way, to the Nickelodeon viewers that have been watching. Our sweet small running back, Deuce Vaughn, the MVP, the Nickelodeon most valuable player of the NFL's preseason. The kids know what they're talking about, and so does our next guest. Coming up next, we are going to talk to FTN's very own Aaron Schatz and get you ready for the upcoming NFL season next here on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. I'm Jesse Cofield. The guys are still out in Kansas City after their live show yesterday, so pardon our road appearance. But fellas, you have a special guest joining us now.
Yes, very excited, Jesse, as we get ready for the rest of the upcoming NFL season to welcome in a guy I've gotten to know for a while now, Aaron Schatz. He's the Chief Analytics Officer over at FTN Network now. You guys can check out as you get ready for every NFL season. Aaron puts out the almanac, the FTN almanac this year, that is the Bible for preseason NFL preparation. If you're not making this a part of it, whether you are someone that just watches, whether you're someone that covers, whether you're someone that's interested in fantasy football or gambling, if you listen to this program here, Aaron is your go-to for that. So Aaron, thanks for the time, man. How you doing? How's your offseason been?
I'm good. My offseason has been very strange. A lot of moving around, a lot of moving parts, but I've landed in a good place. I want to say it is an honor to finally speak to a member of the greatest defense in NFL history.
Wow. There we go. See, some DVOA love for the Eagles.
The issue, interesting, Aaron, is whenever I talked about that defense, people always got on me saying, why don't you ever say that's one of the greatest defenses ever when I talk about Baltimore or, Tampa Bay or the Chicago Bears of '85. And I always say, because we didn't close the deal, we didn't win the Super Bowl, I always took that into consideration. But it was a great defense, but it's tough to check the box of one of the greatest of all time if you don't win a Super Bowl, is it not?
You didn't share a locker room with Walter Payton, for one thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
Or Terry Bradshaw or John Stallworth So, yeah, defensively, we have that as the best defense ever, although our numbers don't go back to the 70s Steelers. But offensively, you guys had no help.
There we go. Well, hey, listen, take that and run with it, man. Hang the DVOA banner. We love all that. And Aaron, as we get going here, you're the godfather of DVOA. Just for people who may not be super familiar, can you quickly explain what DVOA is, since we're probably going to reference it a number of times through this conversation?
Sure. During the season, it's a stat that measures the success of every NFL play based on the down and distance, adjusted for situation and opponent. We're also going to talk about our preseason projections. Those are based on the last couple years of numbers, personnel changes in the offseason, coaching changes in the offseason, various stats that tend to regress towards the mean, and all kinds of statistical mumbo jumbo.
So have fun with this one. How do you project the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson being? Yeah,
that's a hard one to project, right? Because we project them very well, and it's a sample size issue where you have 2.5 years of Kevin Stefanski running good offenses with subpar quarterbacks, and you have all of Deshaun Watson's career being good, and then you have 6 games last year where it was terrible. And the belief is just that you learn more from all of those games of Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski being good than you do from the 6 bad games. And we also think their defense will improve now that they have a really good pass rusher opposite Myles Garrett. So we really like Cleveland this year. That is an amazing division. The AFC North, in our simulations, all 4 teams average at least 9 wins.
Wow. That's so what's the biggest step forward you guys see for a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers that started a rookie quarterback last year and went through some of those growing pains?
I mean, improvement of a rookie quarterback. You have to assume, Pickett was like a little below average as a rookie, which is good for a rookie. You have to assume that rookie quarterbacks are going to improve in their second year. So we also like some of the stuff that they've added on defense. So we think Pittsburgh is going to be a good team overall. But in that division, it's going to be hard. The whole AFC, it's going to be hard to make the playoffs. But that division in particular is so strong from top to bottom.
So would you guys project that to be the strongest division in the NFL then this year, or is there anyone else that can rival that?
No, it's the strongest division in the NFL because, we just have Pittsburgh a good amount better than New England at the bottom of the AFC East. That's probably the second best division in the NFL.
Well, I would ask, and again, they're the deeper conference, I get it. But what about the NFC East? You had 3 teams that made the playoffs last year. We'll see what Washington does, but that seems to be a pretty darn good competitive division.
Well, the numbers suggest that the Giants outperformed their underlying numbers last year. And I give some credit for that to Brian Daboll. I voted for him for Coach of the Year. I think he's a great head coach so far. But I don't think we're going to see a huge improvement from the Giants. And so the underlying numbers suggest that they're going to be worse this year. Washington is, really good defense, but it's hard to trust a 5th-round pick in his first year as the starting quarterback. Dallas and Philadelphia, great teams.
And you guys were early on Philadelphia last year and seeing what they might become here. You guys, I know, also very high on the Dallas Cowboys this year. What does that team project for the upcoming season?
Yeah, I think with Dallas, people remember the playoff losses and they forget just how good Dallas has been in the regular season for 2 years. And you learn more from 34 regular season games than you do from 2 playoff games. Now, you want to argue with me that come playoff time, you have worries about Mike McCarthy as the offensive play caller and you don't know if Dallas can get over the hump. I think that's a good argument. But as far as the regular season goes, this is a team that's really good, best quarterback in the conference, deep on both sides of the ball, should be strong on both offense and defense. So surprisingly, we came up with them as our number 1 team in mean win projections.
Wow. Okay. You talked about a 5th rounder and Sam Howell, not sure his first year being the full-time starter. Well, you have a 7th rounder in San Francisco. Played well last year, certainly, in Brock Purdy. Now, coming off the elbow surgery, what does it look like projections for him in San Francisco this year?
That's another one where you have to make a little bit of a guess. Are you going to sort of give them extra Kyle Shanahan points? And we did. The fact is, Purdy played better in Shanahan's offense than almost any quarterback has other than Garoppolo. He's clearly better than Nick Mullins, better than CJ Beathard. That scheme and the players that they have, I mean, just really raise the quarterback. So we do think the 49ers are going to be a very strong team overall, especially now that Nick Bosa is back for the defense.
Historically, where did that Brock Purdy rookie season rank among some of the performances that we've seen over the years?
It was one of the best rookie seasons for a quarterback in the last 40 years, except sample size wise, he didn't even reach 200 passes. So it's not, you can't consider it in the same place as Marino or Ben Roethlisberger or Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan, because those guys played a lot more than Purdy. But I mean, for a 7th round pick or anybody taken below the 4th round, I don't think there's been a rookie quarterback ever who's had a year quite like what Purdy did in limited time.
So we talk about some individual, we talk about the better teams in the NFL. How about the worst teams? Who are we looking at the bottom of the barrel?
Well, I mean, we have Arizona at the bottom like everyone else. It's funny, when we wrote the book, which, by the way, for folks is still available on Amazon, FTN Almanac, Football Almanac 2023, we had Arizona not in last place because our system kind of thought Colt McCoy was a little underrated. Now Colt McCoy is gone. So Arizona is...
All right, so we've got the bottom, we've got the top in Dallas. Aaron, as you look towards this season, who's going to be the biggest surprise team? The one that last year maybe wasn't in the playoffs, makes that jump that you guys are looking to make huge strides?
We like the Atlanta Falcons, actually. We think that some of the talent they've added on defense, like Onyemata and Calais Campbell, is going to improve their defense. We think they can put out maybe an average offense, and their schedule is really easy. New Orleans and Atlanta have the 2 easiest schedules in the league by leaps and bounds compared to the other 30 teams. And I think people realize that about New Orleans, but I don't think they realize it about Atlanta. Don't be shocked if the NFC South, where last year the winner of the division had a losing record, puts 2 teams in the playoffs this year because of the schedules, even though better AFC teams will stay home while New Orleans and Atlanta play in January.
Oh, all right. There's a spicy one. The NFC South, a 2 playoff team division. That is more of what you can expect if you check out, like Aaron said, the FTN Almanac, still available. You can still check that out. Aaron, one of the best in the business. Thanks so much, man. We'll have to talk to you again real soon, brother.
Absolutely. Love to be on the show whenever you guys call.
Thanks, Aaron. That one to me, because I only have New Orleans coming out of there. I mean, because you have a Desmond Ridder, you have Bryce Young, you have Baker Mayfield, then you have Carr, where the most veteran experienced quarterback in that division, I think, was still a good defense and weapons on offense. If 2 came out of that division, that would be somewhat stunning.
Like I said, schedule goes a long way, though. And, man, you look at Desmond Ridder and you look at all the weapons around him on that offense with Kyle Pitts and Drake London and now Bijan in the backfield. One of the first teams in a long time to start homegrown picks at all those positions from the first round. Coming up next, though, we're going back to college. Woo!
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. I'm Jesse Cofield. Biggest story last week in college football was, of course, Colorado beating TCU. Okay, everybody was talking about it. Now, earlier this week, TCU linebacker Johnny Hodges was asked if that opening loss was a wake-up call, and here's what he had to say about that. Okay, so some good accountability there from the young man.
Took accountability, but said, and I've seen the quote plastered all over the place this week, we feel like we're the laughingstock of college football right now. Felt like they made their coaches look bad. TCU, Dad, is going to have a lot of questions to answer this season, coming off of a year last year where maybe you overachieved a little bit. You had a really good confluence of players on that offense. You've got a new coordinator now, new quarterback back there, and lost a ton of skilled guys like Quentin Johnston, like Kendre Miller in the backfield, Steve Avila, who's going to be a starter for the Los Angeles Rams on the offensive line now. We'll put them aside because I think it's right to downshift expectations a little bit, even in this year's.
They're not as good as people might have thought they were going to be, and Colorado was better than what we thought they were going to be.
I think they met in the middle a lot on that. But as we look forward to this upcoming college football week, I should say in week 2, Dad, we did some of the picks before in our games. We didn't get a chance to sit as much with this Colorado and Nebraska game that's coming up. It's fascinating what's happening here. It's become one of the most expensive tickets of the weekend for fans to go see. They've been selling out like they were going back to the spring game. I saw Shedeur Sanders said he has taken the red merchandise off his website this week.
How great is it to hear a college athlete say, I'm taking something off my account, my merchandise off my website? I mean, that is just awesome. But taking the red off because of Nebraska, this rivalry, what used to be fantastic, obviously, Nebraska-Colorado, now a couple of different situations. Colorado trying to rise from the depths of stink. And Nebraska, man, coming off just a bad game last week. It looked like they were going to get kind of an ugly, sloppy win against Minnesota, and they lose it at the end of the game. So now all of a sudden Colorado's favored, and we're talking about Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Edwards and in this high-powered offense that they had where Sanders throws for 510 yards. And you just have to look at everything is in the favor of Nebraska. Home game, the first home game for Colorado, that place is going to be a zoo.
So I think as far as looking at the actual game, too, because there's a lot of different camps, right? Is this going to level set for Colorado while the hype build? Do you worry at all about the locker room potentially hearing all the good things said about them and then maybe letting their foot off the gas? Because now this went from a game where, again, before last weekend, Colorado was a 7.5-point dog at home. They are now the 3-point home favorite.
So you know how this works. You know how this works. Sometimes you get a win and you get ripped more than you would after a bad loss, right? You guys, when your year that you guys went undefeated, you opened up with Navy and Ireland, you crushed Navy, and you guys got yelled at more than anyone in the world after that game. So while Deion talks very positively and, hey, you guys believe now and all that to the media and to the public, you know what was going on in that locker room. Guys, it doesn't mean a thing if you choke the next week, if you don't get to win the next week, and really highlighting the mistakes and saying it's all for naught if you don't keep it going. So the way Deion is handling his players, I have to believe that is really being stamped in that locker room of do not start feeling good about yourselves. This is one game and one game only. It's one of the greatest football players of all time who seems to really be able to connect with players. I think that's a big thing. Now, looking at the game, you know what this Nebraska offense isn't? A juggernaut.
No.
Because the worry is the Colorado defense at least after game one.
Sure.
And that defense. But Nebraska isn't this high-flying offense, so I'm not really worried that all of a sudden it's going to be this, 50-45 game. But that Nebraska defense is that's the part of that I'm waiting to see. Can they slow down this Colorado offense, which I mentioned the names of the stars of that offense? Can they keep that going, or can they get muted a little bit? But I don't expect a ton out of the Nebraska offense.
Well, you mentioned a lot of names on the offense. The thing I'm most fascinated about in this game is the coordinator matchup that we got going on, because we talked a lot about Colorado's offense. Maybe the most important name is Sean Lewis. Their offense.
He didn't get enough. I don't think he got enough love after the game. There's a lot of prime talk, which I get.
Sure.
He didn't. Sean Lewis didn't get enough love.
And Deion Sanders deserves a ton of credit for what he set up, hired, and delegated there. And part of that was, and I remember when they hired Sean Lewis, who spent a ton of time at Kent State, ran some great offenses there. People looked up and their eyebrows raised when they saw that. And he came in, and I saw Stephen Godfrey from Split Zone Duo write about this. It's a system that simplified because you had so much newness there, right? You have really quality skill players. You have an offensive line that's going to be a little disadvantaged as far as physical ability, but play clean line. And so what do? You come in and run a system that's incredibly RPO, use of having a quarterback that can move around time, that gets the ball in the hands of great athletes like they had on the outside, 4 receivers going over 100 yards in that game, turn it into a track meet, get the ball out quick, and prosper. He's going up against Tony White on defense on the other side that I thought in week 1 showed pretty well for itself. The Nebraska offense did not look great. And Minnesota, we know, dealing with Ethan Kaliak-Manis taking over on that offense for a long-time quarterback on that side. They lost their best running back. They had a lot of new there. So we'll see how Nebraska's D looks. But that 3-3-5 structure, another one of those things that we saw for so long. He's a disciple of San Diego State. Keep guys in front of you, create more havoc around the line of scrimmage. I'm going to be fascinated to watch that coordinator matchup of the guys on those sides.
I agree. I mean, and as far as, Deion saying, I believe for this week, and I'll take it week by week. I will take Colorado. I'll give the points. I'm going to say it's going to be an incredible home opener for them. The issue going forward is with all teams, but remember, completely remade team is as the season goes on, what do we start to see come into effect is depth. Yeah. Where's their depth? Especially on that O-line. It is not a big, physical, imposing offensive line. Sure. They run that offense fast, so the guys are a little smaller and they keep going. But what happens if you start getting nicked and you have to start bringing in some of that depth? That's going to be a big test for Colorado with this completely revamped roster.
Yeah, we saw tempo as a huge weapon for them early in that TCU game. A little bit more so late. It is going to be fascinating. But I think the one thing overwhelmingly Deion deserves credit for in week 1 that I'll transfer into week 2 is he had his team ready for that moment. And so if we're talking about now a different challenge of being ready for the home opener where now people are looking at you, people are loving on you here, he got them ready for what I think is an infinitely more difficult moment coming off that offseason, going on the road against a team that was in the title last year. I think he'll have them ready for this moment too. The number that's interesting for me in this game is the over-under of 59. I do feel like we could land south of that. Everyone saw the fireworks in that last game. I think we'll get a little more resistance from Nebraska defensively. And offensively, I just don't think they're built to do some of the same things that we saw Kendall Browse and company.
I don't see Nebraska putting up a lot of points. And you're right, the matchup is the Colorado offense and the Tony White defense for Nebraska. Because, again, you're trying to stop the Dylan Thomas, the Travis Hunter, and the Shedeur Sanders who can move as well. So that's a lot of weapons to try and stop. And Colorado showed they can be a big play. I mean, Shedeur Sanders showed he can throw short, he can throw mid-range, missed a couple of deep balls early, but hit a couple of deep balls. Hit them, threw them right on the money. So they're hitting at all levels, which has been really impressive.
Can I give you my favorite bet of the weekend?
All right.
And if you do not bet this, you are deeply un-American, and I think you hate fun.
Wow.
We've got the Cy-Hawk game this weekend. Iowa at Iowa State. Now, Iowa's a 4-point favorite in this game. They're the better team. They should win. But in this game, you have got 6 players from Iowa State, 5 players from Iowa that were suspended or booted from their team for NCAA gambling violations. This is the gambler's game of the weekend here. And the only play in this that we need to do as a country, under 36.5. This should be the easiest under of all time. We all got hot and bothered last week. The drive to 325, for anyone unaware, 325 points in offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz' contract to trigger a bunch of bonuses for his performance this year. They fell under that average last week by a point. Going to be very interested what happens this week. But I know in this game, there should be next to 0 points going on in here. If you don't bet the Iowa State under, I don't think you enjoy fun.
I guarantee you those players are betting the – oh, wait a minute. Sorry.
Yeah, is it too soon?
Whoa, is that
too soon?
About that.
It's probably too soon.
I apologize for that.
Pay the players, pay the teachers, save the whales.
There you go.
Let's finish it off coming up next with another bag secured in the world of college sports. Next on GoJo and Golic. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield holding it down for us back in Boston. Dad and I hanging out here in Kansas City, basking in the afterglow of night one of the NFL as we get ready to head into the weekend. We're going to send you off like we always do with 3 quick stories to get you into the rest of your day and, in this case, your weekend. Download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us a 5-star rating. Let us know more of what you want to see in here. And also, make sure you go and get yourself a great pair of knockaround sunglasses. I told you, Dad, yesterday about how the sun was kicking my ass all day until I donned the knockarounds. They're high-quality polarized sunglasses at a very affordable price. They're not going to break the bank, and you don't got to worry about babying them, breaking them, anything like that. They got the first 9 teams of their MLB collection out right now. If you want to, perchance, support USA, they've got the U.S. men's and women's national team soccer sunglasses, but red, white, and blue plays for some of the things that we're going to talk about, too. So head to knockaround.com and use promo code GOLIC to get yourself free shipping on that order. Dad, let's get to this, that, and the third, and take a look at a little bit of that USA. We've got the FIBA World Cup going on right now for Team USA. Knotted up in a tight one against Germany.
Yeah, right now, third quarter, about 7 minutes ago, U.S. down 6 to Germany, 70-64. So that's the one semifinal game. Serbia beat Canada in the other one, so Serbia's in the final. Remember, Serbia knocked off Lithuania, who beat U.S., so Lithuania was like, well, our win over the U.S. didn't mean a damn thing because we lost to Serbia, and they're in the finals now after beating Canada. So we'll see. A little more than a quarter and a half to go for the United States to make up right now. It's a 4-point difference. They just scored. So we'll see if they can make that move on Germany and face Serbia for the gold.
I saw Draymond Green tweet some support for these guys the other day and said, you know, I know what it's like to be over there and have the whole country switch up on you. Now, the circumstances are largely different. I don't feel like anyone switched up on Team USA in basketball after the whole back and forth with Noah Lyles and the track stuff there. That didn't really have anything to do with them as much as it had to do with this like ridiculous premise of a championship being balked at in the best league in the world. and then people kind of piling on the USA ways. That didn't seem like anyone over here is an indictment of the hoops.
No, I didn't think so at all, and not one bit. So let's see if they can pull it off. They actually played Germany in a friendly before this tournament started, and they were down 16 at one point to Germany, came back and beat them in this. So right now, as we were talking, down a handful of points with a little more than a quarter to go.
Hopefully we don't get Das Boot right here in the semifinal round. Jesse, we are saying happy trails to a longtime member of our profession here, those we found out yesterday.
Yeah, Real Sports with Brian Campbell is going away after 30 years. They announced that the current season, which is airing on HBO, is going to be its last. And then we had this tweet here from our buddy Richard over at The Athletic. He said, basically with ESPN ending its linear Outside the Lines show, today's announcement on Real Sports, I think this is the end for a dedicated long-form sports journalism show on cable or linear. Can't see a digital entity investing cash for a video version with any regularity as well. So what do you guys think? Is this the end of an era?
That from Richard Deitch. I think I might agree with that. I don't know what's going to come out in this kind of long, because you know what? Our society isn't used to long form anymore, right?
Yeah, we don't have the attention span. The youth.
That's exactly right.
They don't want it.
I hear people of your guys' age at times saying, "Oh, it was this 2-minute video. I couldn't watch it." 2-minute video.
I don't want to hear it from you the other day complaining about watching Lord of the Rings because it's too long. But
hours. I'm talking about a 2-minute video.
You don't have your attention span to watch a 3-hour movie, but I do here.
No.
How the turntables, brother?
I'll watch a 3-hour movie if it's good.
It is good. That? Oh yeah. You know what? I'm sorry you disagree with A Nation. Let's go ahead. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes has kind of been proven to be FUBAR, but.
I see you trying to fit your narrative.
Rotten Tomatoes, there is literature on this that you wouldn't probably get through because you don't have the attention span that I do.
I go on the line and see that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
It will be
interesting, though, how someone on the line. I put it out there, on the line. I will say, I think like we always talk about with football, a lot of this is cyclical. Maybe at some point we'll get back to it, but I think we're also going to see a lot of this change, Dad. Like, I think of and look at the rebrand and the new version of Inside the NFL and say that's a show that's a little more predicated on you sitting down and digesting more highbrow football content, breaking down plays, stuff that you might not think would have a home that now just got revamped with a little bit younger crowd. Ryan Clark hosting a group that's got Jay Cutler in it, that's got Chris Long in it, that's got those guys there on the CW, which, by the way,
CW getting in the sports scene, huh?
Getting into the right speed conversation.
Wow, what is
inside the NFL on the CW?
They're finding that money.
I tell you what, though, one thing, the CW, I will never forgive them. Did you know that they rebooted Legends of the Hidden Temple?
Yeah.
It's been on the CW, but we never hear or see it.
No.
What are y'all doing? In the Bible, it says you do not put a lamp under a bushel basket. You do not hide gifts from the Lord. And why have they decided to do that with one of the lights of my childhood?
I mean,
the hell did you just say?
The CW has some real trash but amazing TV.
Yeah. I mean, yes, this is not a lie, including Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yeah, that was phenomenal.
The Temple Guards, the Shrine of the Silver Monkey.
You guys did
the Blue Barracudas. It's
incredible.
Yeah. Honestly, by the way, CW folks, if you're listening, I don't need to host any cool shit. You got a great show like that with Inside the NFL. I'm excited to watch. But if you want to bring me on to host Legends of the Hidden Temple, I promise
you'd do that over Inside the NFL, wouldn't you?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I would be great at that one there. So let's get it twisted. Let's go put together that little monkey in that room. I don't know how more of the Temple Guards didn't get punched back in the day when they're running up on kids like that.
Boy, that is true.
They used to just come out and
yeah. I'm gonna pop. Yeah. It's a good point. That's a good point.
These hands work, Temple Guard.
Show. I did enjoy that.
Oh man, that's so good. Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, congratulations to Brian. Also, like a great run on that show.
Oh, exactly.
Incredible.
300 episodes. Yeah. Did we miss the headline there?
Brian Gumble, this is the problem. Brian Gumble puts together 29 years of this unbelievable long-form dedicated show.
And you disrespect it.
And I'm
37. 37 Sports Emmy Awards, 3 Peabodys. Pretty good for the show.
Wow. Yeah. But could he put together the silver monkey in that room with the allotted time period?
Probably not.
Give the man his due.
Congratulations, Brian Gumbel. Let's finish up with one more bit of congratulations here, Jesse. If we talked about bags getting handed out a lot this week.
Yeah, look, somebody is going to be able to buy all the sequin blazers they want. Kim Mulkey signing an incredible deal, 10 years, $32 million, richest total contract in women's college basketball history. You know her resume: 4 national championships, 3 with Baylor, 1 with LSU, 3-time AP College Basketball Coach of the Year, first person in NCAA women's basketball history to win a national title as a player, assistant coach, and head coach. Absolutely unreal.
What was unreal were those outfits during the tournament. I mean, that was just
fitted up, man.
Now, do you think she I'm sure has her own fashion thoughts, but how players, how the guys in the NBA
have a stylist?
Have a stylist. Do you think Kim is her own stylist?
Or do you think Kim Mulkey's letting someone else tell her what to do?
Well, I know, but maybe she's smart enough or a good enough coach to understand to delegate. If this person maybe knows this better than me, I'll rely on them.
I think those are custom fits straight from Kim Mulkey's mouth. She's saying, make me this sequin blazer. And they're like, yes, anything you want, queen.
Jesse, would you ever wear any of the outfits she had on?
Yes, I would 100% wear a sequin blazer.
Yeah.
No problem.
I will say, by the way, too, Kim Mulkey is going to probably make this contract look very good again very quickly, because in addition to the national championship team she brought back last year, led by Angel Reese, they went out in the portal and added Haley Van Lith to that as well.
Right.
I would pay to see some of those fights in practice among that group. They're big personalities, all very accomplished personalities, too, who are going to walk into this and probably steamroll through a lot of women's college basketball next year. That LSU team is going to be a juggernaut.
That is a lot of A personalities, starting with their coach.
Yes. Oh, first and foremost, at the front of the line there. So, but that is, listen, an incredible testament. We've talked about in a lot of ways. Listen, while I might have personal misgivings with some of the things that Kim Mulkey has said and done, especially off the court in recent years, what her and that program have represented, and what we've seen now is the general trends that we've talked about in women's sports, coming off what happened with Nebraska volleyball, women's college basketball this last season. Yeah. Some of the highest rated games of the year, including Caitlin Clark, that LSU team in the postseason. You've got legitimate stars in that sport, and this coach is certainly one of the names everybody knows.
Yeah, so congrats on her securing the bag. There's been a number of players and coaches we talked about securing the bag. It's been pretty impressive as we get ready to hit week 1 in the NFL.
Enjoy it, drink it in. Thanks so much for rocking with us. Have a great weekend. Enjoy all the NFL action. Download, subscribe, rate, review. We'll see you on Monday.